What happens when a beloved morning television host comes face to face with a guest who thinks the rules don't apply to them? It only took 29 seconds for Prince Harry to completely destroy his reputation on live television, with one shocking outburst that left viewers speechless and host Lorraine Kelly fighting to maintain control of her own show. The morning started like any other at the ITV studios. Lorraine Kelly had been preparing for what she thought would be a straightforward interview. Her producers had briefed her on the talking points. Nothing too controversial, just a casual chat about recent charitable work and public appearances. The kind of interview that fills morning television slots perfectly, warm and friendly. Exactly what viewers expect when they tune in with their morning coffee. But from the moment Prince Harry walked into the studio, something felt different. The usual pre-interview pleasantries were cut short. There were no warm hellos, no casual conversation about the weather or the journey to the studio. Instead, Harry took his seat with an air of impatience that immediately put everyone on edge. Lorraine, ever the professional, tried to lighten the mood as the cameras began rolling. She flashed her trademark smile and welcomed him with her usual warmth. "Good morning and welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you here with us today," Lorraine began, her voice carrying that familiar Scottish lilt that had endeared her to millions of viewers over the years. Harry barely acknowledged the greeting. He shifted in his chair, glanced around the studio with obvious discomfort, and gave the cameras a look that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. "Right. Well, let's get this over with then," he muttered, loud enough for the microphones to pick up every word. Lorraine's smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered. Professional as always. She had dealt with difficult guests before. Celebrities who were having bad days. Politicians who didn't want to be there. But something about this felt different. There was an underlying hostility that she couldn't quite place. "Well, I was hoping we could start by talking about your recent work with the Veterans Charity. Our viewers are always interested in hearing about the causes that matter to you," Lorraine said, trying to steer the conversation towards safer ground. Harry leaned back in his chair, his posture screaming disrespect. "Look, Lorraine, I didn't come here to talk about charity work. I came here because my publicist told me I had to. So why don't you just ask me what you really want to ask me, instead of dancing around with all this fake niceness?" The studio fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed to freeze. Lorraine had been doing live television for decades, but she had never encountered such blatant rudeness from a guest, especially not during what was supposed to be a friendly morning chat. "I'm sorry. I think there might be some misunderstanding," Lorraine replied, her voice still calm, but with a slight edge that regular viewers would recognize. "This is my show, and I ask the questions I think our viewers want to hear. If you're not comfortable discussing your charitable work, we can certainly talk about something else." Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your show? Right. Let me tell you something about your show, Lorraine. This whole setup, this fake morning television nonsense, it's all just a circus designed to make people like me dance for the entertainment of people who have nothing better to do with their mornings." The control room must have been in chaos. Producers were probably scrambling, wondering whether to cut to commercial, whether to keep rolling, whether to try to salvage what was quickly becoming a disaster. But Lorraine Kelly had built her career on handling live television, and she wasn't about to let anyone, regardless of their title, turn her show into their personal platform for complaints. "I understand that morning television isn't for everyone," Lorraine said, her voice steady despite the unprecedented situation unfolding in front of her. "But millions of people choose to start their day with us because we try to bring a bit of warmth and positivity into their mornings. If that's not something you can respect, then perhaps we should end this interview now." That's when Harry's mask completely slipped. His face darkened, and he leaned forward in his chair with an aggressive posture that made everyone in the studio uncomfortable. "End the interview? You don't get to end anything. Do you know who you're talking to? I'm not some nobody actor promoting their latest film or some politician trying to win votes. I'm royalty. I don't have to sit here and pretend to care about your little morning show or your viewers who are probably all unemployed anyway." The gasps from the crew were audible now. This wasn't just rudeness anymore. This was something else entirely. Harry had crossed a line that most guests wouldn't even dream of approaching, let alone sprinting across with such obvious contempt. Lorraine's face went pale, but her voice remained steady. The years of live television had taught her to keep her composure even when everything around her was falling apart. But you could see it in her eyes. The shock, the disbelief that anyone would speak about her viewers, her loyal audience, in such a disgusting way. "I'm sorry. What did you just say?" Lorraine asked, giving Harry one chance to take back his words, to apologize, to show even the smallest amount of decency. But Harry doubled down instead. He actually smiled, as if he was enjoying the chaos he was creating. You heard me perfectly well, Lorraine. Your viewers, the people who sit at home watching morning television, what do you think they're doing with their lives? Successful people are at work by now. The only people watching this rubbish are people with nothing better to do. Unemployed, retired, or just plain lazy. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the sound technicians seemed to be holding their breath. This wasn't just an insult to Lorraine anymore. This was an attack on every single person watching at home. Nurses on night shifts catching up on morning shows before sleep, parents with young children, elderly people who found comfort in familiar faces, people recovering from illness, all dismissed with such cruel contempt. Lorraine stood up slowly. Her chair made a small noise as it rolled back slightly. The action was deliberate, controlled, but it sent a clear message. She had reached her limit. Right, I think we need to stop this interview right now, Lorraine said firmly. I will not sit here and allow you to insult the people who watch this show. These are good, hardworking people from all walks of life, and they deserve better than this. Harry actually laughed out loud. Oh, please, spare me the righteous indignation, Lorraine. You know I'm right. You're just angry because someone finally said it out loud. This whole morning television thing is just a way to keep the masses entertained so they don't think too hard about their pathetic little lives. That's when something shifted in Lorraine's demeanor. The professional mask slipped just enough to show the real woman underneath. The Scottish woman who had worked her way up through journalism, who understood what it meant to struggle, who genuinely cared about the people she spoke to every morning. You know what, Harry? I've met a lot of people in my career. I've interviewed world leaders, celebrities, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. But I have never, ever met someone with such complete disregard for other human beings. You're sitting here in a position of incredible privilege, and you're using that platform to mock people who work hard every day just to get by. Harry's face twisted with anger. Privilege? Don't you dare lecture me about privilege. Do you have any idea what it's like to live with the constant scrutiny, the pressure, the expectations? You sit here in your cozy little studio talking to housewives and pensioners about the weather and celebrity gossip, and you think you understand real pressure? I understand pressure just fine. Lorraine shot back, her Scottish accent becoming more pronounced as her anger grew. What I don't understand is using that pressure as an excuse to be cruel to innocent people. You want to talk about pressure? How about the single mother watching this show while getting her kids ready for school, wondering how she's going to pay the bills this month? How about the elderly gentleman who tunes in every morning because this show is sometimes the only conversation he has all day? Those people face real pressure, and they don't use it as an excuse to hurt others. Harry was on his feet now too, his face red with rage. Don't you dare compare their pathetic problems to what I deal with every single day. They chose their lives. They chose to be ordinary, to be mediocre, to settle for watching other people live instead of actually living themselves. The control room must have been in complete pandemonium by now. This wasn't just a difficult interview anymore. This was a full-blown confrontation happening live on national television, but somehow the cameras kept rolling, capturing every word, every gesture, every moment of this unprecedented breakdown. They chose their lives? Lorraine repeated, her voice rising slightly. What about the viewers who didn't choose to get sick? What about the ones who didn't choose to lose their jobs? What about the carers looking after elderly parents, or the people dealing with disability, or the students studying while they watch? You think they all just chose to be lazy? Harry's response was even worse than anything that had come before. Life is about choices, Lorraine. Some people choose to make something of themselves, and others choose to make excuses. I didn't choose to be born into royalty, but I chose to do something meaningful with it. These people choose to waste their mornings watching television instead of improving their lives. That was the moment Lorraine Kelly had heard enough. The moment where decades of professionalism, of biting her tongue, of being diplomatic, finally reached its breaking point. Right, that's it. Get out. The words came out of Lorraine's mouth with such quiet force that they seemed to echo through the entire studio. There was no shouting, no dramatics, just 4 simple words delivered with absolute authority. Harry blinked, clearly not expecting such a direct response. For the first time since he'd walked into the studio, he looked genuinely surprised. "Excuse me?" he said, his voice slightly higher than before. "You heard me perfectly well. Get out of my studio. This interview is over." Lorraine's voice was calm but unmistakable in its finality. She gestured toward the studio doors. "Security will show you the way if you need assistance finding the exit." The color drained from Harry's face. In all his years of interviews, press conferences, and public appearances, no one had ever dismissed him like this. The entitlement that had been radiating from him just moments before began to crumble as the reality of the situation hit him. You can't be serious. You can't just throw me off your show. Do you understand the consequences of what you're doing? Do you know who I am? Lorraine took a step closer to him, and despite being considerably smaller in stature, she somehow seemed to tower over him in that moment. I know exactly who you are. You're someone who just spent the last 10 minutes insulting hardworking people who've done nothing wrong except turn on their television this morning. You're someone who thinks being born into privilege gives you the right to look down on others. And right now, you're someone who's no longer welcome on my show. The studio crew stood frozen, watching this unprecedented confrontation unfold. Camera operators kept filming. Sound technicians kept recording. Everyone understanding instinctively that they were witnessing television history being made. Harry tried to regain his composure, but his voice betrayed his growing panic. Lorraine, I think you're overreacting here. Maybe we both got a bit heated, but there's no need to end things like this. We can take a break, cool down, start again. Start again? Lorraine repeated, her eyebrows raising slightly. So you can insult more people? So you can tell pensioners they're wasting their lives? So you can mock single parents struggling to make ends meet? There is no starting again from what you've just said. Look, maybe I spoke a bit harshly, but you have to understand the pressure I'm under. The media scrutiny, the constant judgment, it gets to you after a while. I didn't mean to take it out on your viewers. But Lorraine wasn't buying the sudden attempt at an apology. A bit harshly? You called millions of decent people lazy and pathetic. You suggested they don't deserve respect because they're not wealthy or famous. That wasn't harsh words, Harry. That was cruelty. Harry's face was getting redder by the second. The charm, the royal training, the media polish, all of it was gone now, replaced by raw desperation. Fine, I apologize, all right? I'm sorry I said those things about your precious viewers. Is that what you want to hear? What I want, Lorraine said firmly, is for you to leave. An apology that starts with fine and calls my viewers precious in that tone isn't worth the breath you used to say it. That's when Harry made his biggest mistake of the entire disastrous interview. Instead of accepting defeat gracefully, instead of walking away with what little dignity he had left, he decided to go for one final, devastating attack. You know what, Lorraine? You're just as pathetic as the people watching this rubbish. A middle-aged woman desperately trying to stay relevant by pretending to care about other people's boring little lives. At least I'm honest about who I am. The entire studio went dead silent. Even the hum of the equipment seemed to fade away. Lorraine stood perfectly still for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear her. Security, please escort Prince Harry from the building immediately. He is no longer welcome here. 2 large security guards appeared as if from nowhere, moving toward Harry with professional efficiency. The reality of what had just happened finally seemed to sink in for him. Wait, you can't do this to me. I'm royalty. You can't have me physically removed from a television studio like some common troublemaker. Watch me, Lorraine replied simply. As the security guards approached, Harry's composure completely collapsed. The mask of royal dignity fell away entirely, revealing someone who clearly wasn't used to facing consequences for his actions. This is ridiculous. This is completely unprofessional. You're going to regret this, Lorraine. Do you have any idea what this will do to your career? To this show? No one treats royalty like this and gets away with it. Lorraine walked calmly back to her chair and sat down, looking directly into the camera as if Harry wasn't even there anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize to everyone watching at home for what you've just witnessed. You deserve better than what happened here today. You are the reason this show exists, and you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, always. The security guards had reached Harry now, and were politely but firmly indicating that it was time for him to leave. But Harry wasn't finished. As he was being escorted toward the studio doors, he turned back for one last outburst. You'll be hearing from my lawyers, Lorraine. This is harassment. This is discrimination. You can't treat members of the royal family like this and expect no consequences. But Lorraine didn't even look in his direction. She kept her eyes on the camera, speaking directly to her viewers. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll have some lovely music and a chat with a local baker who's been making birthday cakes for children in hospital. That's the kind of story that really matters. The kind of people who make this world a better place. Harry's voice could still be heard echoing from the corridor outside the studio as he continued to shout threats and complaints, but his microphone had been cut, and his words became increasingly distant and irrelevant. The red recording light finally went dark as they cut to commercial break, and Lorraine Kelly sat alone in her chair, surrounded by her crew, having just done something that no television host had ever done before. She had put human decency above celebrity status, had chosen her viewers over her guest, and had shown that sometimes standing up for what's right matters more than keeping the peace. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the studio door slamming shut as Prince Harry was escorted from the building, his reputation in ruins, his sense of entitlement finally meeting its match in a Scottish television presenter who refused to let anyone insult the people she cared about.